I'll make a start, and then we can see as it unfolds, and hopefully we'll have everybody on board. So I'd just like to welcome everybody to this special panel today. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm delighted to be able to welcome you all to this special panel. How can alumni networks spark science, innovation and leadership? My name is Maria Gallo, and I'm the author of The Alumni Way, Building Lifelong Value from University Investment, and a visiting research fellow at the Trinity College, Dublin. I am delighted to bring to you today a really exciting expert panel on this topic. As you may have noticed in the brief, if you had the opportunity to read it, it talks about how these alumni networks, global alumni networks, are a recent trend, and it is something that we're going to be exploring further as how it connects to science. So this is an opportunity for me to introduce the panel to you very briefly, and it's in the order of how they will be speaking today. So first, I have Alexis Roig, and he's a serial entrepreneur and a born connector who creates value by bringing people from different cultures and backgrounds together. He currently serves as CEO of the SciTech Diplo Hub, the Barcelona Science and Technology Diplomacy Hub, and leads Barcelona Alumni. He is a senior advisor on science diplomacy for ministries of foreign affairs, science, research, and education across Asia, Europe, and Latin America. I also want to introduce on the panel is Dr. Katarina Heil. She's a passionate person who enjoys connecting people. She currently works as Communities and Training Coordinator for the intergovernmental organization Elixir, which stands for the European Research Infrastructure for Life Sciences. During her Erasmus Mundus Association presidency, she led over 100 volunteers to foster interactions across the 12,000 plus international members to spread the word about the power of network and connections. She's also part of Team HB6 of Homeward Bound, a groundbreaking global leadership initiative for women in STEM, aiming to heighten the influence and impact of women making decisions that shape our planet, which includes a connection to Antarctica. I'd like to also introduce you to Giacomo Bastianelli, who holds a PhD in bioinformatics from the Pasteur Institute in Paris and business training from Stanford University and HEC. Giacomo is a serial entrepreneur and executive who founded and managed several biotech and high-tech companies, including Loungy and SciBrain. Currently, he is developing Loungy, the next generation professional networking platform for vertical networks and professional communities. And finally, our discussant, Sandra Rincon. She's the co-author of Engaging International Alumni as Strategic Partners and founder of the NL Alumni Networks, the Netherlands, host of Bright Ideas, a podcast for advancement professionals, and also a PhD candidate at Tilburg University on global citizen engagement. She has over 30 years of experience in international education, and she helps governments and higher education institutions build communities and promote diversity as a pillar to innovate a more inclusive, sustainable, and kinder world. And on that note, I'd love to open the panel and the panel discussion that we have today on how can alumni networks spark science, innovation, and leadership. And if I can, welcome everybody on the panel. Hello. And I'd like to start with Alexis, if I can. Alexis, why does the SciTech Diplo Hub recognize that it's important to mobilize Barcelona alumni as a science, technology, and research diaspora community?
Thank you, Maria. And well, first of all, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join you all today. So just to give a bit of context, SciTech Diplo Hub is a pioneering nonprofit public-private partnership working in science diplomacy. We support national, regional, and local governments worldwide in deploying their own science diplomacy strategies, design capacity building programs, and leveraging science diplomacy as a tool for soft power, cross-cultural understanding, as well as advancing sustainable development. So being a Barcelona-based organization and being Barcelona, the world's first city to have a science diplomacy, we're obviously supporting the city's efforts in this regard. So as you were pointing out, Maria, one of the flagship initiatives of Barcelona science diplomacy is the one engaging with the city's science diaspora, what we call the Barcelona Alumni. Barcelona Alumni is the network that gathers all the professionals from any origin, so people coming originally from Barcelona or from any other place in the world that studied or did research at any of Barcelona's universities and research centers, or that work in our science ecosystem, and that now they are abroad, they are elsewhere. So as you can imagine, we have all these professionals, all these scientists, they have a central role in Barcelona science diplomacy. They help to open doors to our ecosystem, identify opportunities, help us to be aware of trends that we were maybe not following properly. And they are intercultural communicators, ambassadors of the city's ecosystem. So we engage and nurture this community with a number of digital tools, events, and projects. So we build this mutually beneficial relationship between them and Barcelona's ecosystem. And in this regard, I like to, this is an anecdote that I always try to share, which is that I often get, when talking to government officials, decision makers, or politicians, I get asked if this is a talent retention project. And well, my answer is that this is obviously a talent retention project, but talent retention as it should be understood in the 21st century. So it's not necessarily about retaining people in a physical way. It's about keeping this global talent that were educated in Barcelona, wherever they are, connected among them and with Barcelona. So it's about fostering new research or business opportunities. It's about empowering this vibrant community, because many of them might never come back to physically work in Barcelona science ecosystem. Some others will. But however, most of them would be more than happy to be involved in some of the thrilling projects taking place in Barcelona, benefit from some cooperation opportunities with institutions here, contribute somehow to the local ecosystem without necessarily leaving their current jobs or their current cities. And this is the sort of talent retention I think we should all be after.
Great, thank you. And I know that you've used that phrase before around brain, that brain drain, and instead of just brain gain, you talk about brain circulation. I always wrote that down and underlined it many times, Alexis. So I think it's a really important one for us to think about. You've coined that brain circulation idea. I love that. Katarina, if I can just turn over to you for a minute, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about your experiences with Erasmus Mundus and with the Homeward Bound project. And what do you see as the personal value in engaging with alumni networks?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Maria. And also thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. It's great to have all these other speakers together with me on the panel today as well. And as you said, Maria, at the beginning, yes, 12,000 alumni are quite a lot. And what Alexis just mentioned, it very often is about giving back and wanting to connect with other like-minded people. So the value in connecting with others across the globe really, I think, comes from that intercultural and international connection that you can form. Within the Erasmus Mundus context, we're also really talking about a lot of people that had never actually left their cultural environments before, all the way until they come to Europe. Europe can be a very open environment, but it can also be very closed in one way or the other. But we bring people together that really are highly interested, highly educated, and highly curious, and want to learn from each other. So coming up with a structure that allows them all to stay in touch with each other afterwards is really the main benefit that we can give. And looking at an alumni association as well, I think there's two types of alumni we can distinguish as well. Where there's the ones that are rather passive and wanting to be part of a network, maybe getting the input, knowing what's happening. But then there's also many that are really very active and want to shape that future and want to be part of what the alumni can be benefiting from, what they can be contributing to. And that, I think, really is where the value of an association comes in. If you give a structure, every other week I am impressed myself how much our volunteers are doing themselves. They go back, they want to give back in their original countries, but they also want to enable others to then become part of this network, first of all as a student, but then again also as an alumni. And similarly now also thinking a little bit about the science aspects and my experiences in Homeward Bound, what I can personally say is that once you start and have a project together, whenever there is a joint interest in a scientific topic or in a field of studies, and you have had to go through something, whatever experience that might be, you do start to feel part of a group. And that is what I would then already consider an alumni network. And that's also really one of the big values that I'm finding in the Homeward Bound initiative, where women or people come together with an interest in protecting nature, becoming leaders in the future, and so on. But really sharing experiences and tackling problems and challenges together, I think what is really very powerful to establish those bounds between individuals to then form networks for the future as well.
Love that. I think it's really powerful. And I think it really says also a lot about that, you bring all that diversity. So it's not everybody from the same scientific area. In fact, it's all that diversity you can bring together and how you can contribute to these incredible tackling incredible problems. It's fantastic. Giacomo, if I could turn to you, one of the ways I guess that the question I want to ask is around technology, because I know that that's something that you can talk to us about. How can technology amplify the efforts of alumni networks to advance science? That is, what can technology like Loungy do to support special alumni networks?
Yeah, happy to share that. And thanks again, Maria and the organizations for the invitation. Great to be in this panel and to share what we learned over the past few years on this topic. So specifically on this advancement of science, I mean, my background is I'm a scientist by heart. I love science. I'm a science geek. I studied biotech, and that would be always in my heart, even if I could change in another industry. Science is multidisciplinary, and it's becoming more and more. We see it even at the level of university, where they created alliances because they realized they cannot do it by themselves, because the challenges, not only science but also social sciences and economics, it's just beyond your university. So when it gets very strongly multidisciplinary, and not all the science is that, there are certain science that are more or less multidisciplinary, it requires collaborations, which means that not just one university, even the top, you take Cornell for agriculture, they cannot innovate alone. They need everyone else to be around. So they need to build collaboration. So that means universities, companies, organizations. So the concept that was, the alumni network concept, which is I study at the same universities, therefore I'm part of that alumni network. That's great. It creates that dimension. What Sandra mentioned to me a few minutes ago, was called the emotional bond. So, and what I call the networking theory, weak ties between people and nodes of a network. So this emotional bond that connects people within, because they study at the same university. When you talk about science, you need to go beyond that. You need to think about, okay, so let's say that biotech or nanotechnology is important. Which are the university and therefore their alumni network who could help to advance that area of science? Well, let's bring them together. Let's not create silos, but let's bring them together around one challenge, one scientific topic. And that's basically what we're doing at Loungy, as simple as that. Instead of creating and giving a networking platform to connect alumni silos, the Cornell, the Free University of Berlin separated, we said, why don't we create a vertical network around nanotechnology or something that we want to develop, an area of science, and get all these alumni networks to gravitate around that topic. And I think that's where collaboration will spark. That's what acceleration of innovation will happen. And that's where we are. That's why we're very excited to be powering this new dimension of alumni networks, which are cross dimension, not just your university, not just your country, but just a topic that is so important that requires all the brains from all the world to tackle that problem.
And I mean, what's an interesting thread that's come through everybody talking is that this is something you can't tackle alone, and that we need to be thinking bigger around how you conceptualize what an alumni relationship is and how alumni can connect back in as a form of diaspora to different places. And I'm out to the full panel. I'm just interested if you want to let me know what you think around what you see as some of the key partners that can support alumni networks, especially those that might focus on science. So what do you see as the key partners? Anybody want to chime in?
Maybe I can jump in first.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's obvious that when we're talking about a particular university alumni network, the main partner stakeholder is the alma mater, the university itself. But when we're talking about broader regional, local, national strategies to engage with science diasporas, I think that here this multi-stakeholder engagement is key, because I mean, we should talk about the different organizations that were hosting those professionals when they were back in the country, universities, research centers, companies. Try to engage with all the stakeholders is key when trying to identify this talent, keep it connected, offering them opportunities to keep growing professionally, either through training, either through professional opportunities. So in the case of Barcelona, when designing and implementing the Barcelona Alumni project and engaging with our scientific diaspora, we have with us all the universities in the city, all the research centers. We have the local government, the regional government, the main philanthropic foundations that fund science and funded many of the private scholarships to allow this talent to come to Barcelona and get trained. So we have both the public and the private sector. And I think that this perspective, usually it's not the case for, I mean, this is not the first thing that institutions think, because all institutions, we first think in silos, because I mean, it's in the DNA of organizations. I think that breaking this barrier when trying to engage with those alumni, with this diaspora is essential.
Great. Anybody else? Go ahead, Catalina.
Yeah, maybe the one thing I would add as well is really that a lot of the scientific associations are also investing more and more into having, say, at the beginning, starting with junior associations for the younger researchers. And very often, I think in those contexts, really, it's also the people that almost themselves build the network. So when you get them together at the beginning, they start to get to know each other. They will keep engaging with that association for many more years to come. And then they will themselves already be that scientific network to themselves, again, extrapolate and bring that message towards a wider community.
Anybody else wanted to kind of comment, or I have other questions to ask here? I thought maybe it would be an opportunity for us maybe to explore some collaborations or innovations that have resulted through your experiences of alumni networks. Does anybody want to give us some good kind of concrete examples of things that you've worked on that have resulted through your alumni network experiences?
Sure, I'm happy to share that let's say that the journey of lounges started around the concept of connecting people, and then we realized that there was a strong need for alumni networks for that kind of concept. So that means that when we started developing this concept of matchmaking, so connecting people based on their professional goals, not who they are, but what they want to become. This is a game changer into the networking approach. It's not about your CVs, who you want to become. And we presented this to a board member of an alumni network in a French school. And this person told us, you know what, we are trying to exactly have the same idea. We're on the same path. We want to build this kind of networking, matchmaking based on goals within our universities. And so we start working together. And that was the beginning of lounges. So for us, we have a strong ties to an alumni network, to alumni networks in general, because the story behind it is basically powered by inputs from alumni networks. And to me, the alumni network represents the perfect networking ground as an example of a network where people connect and collaborate, from mentorship to starting companies. and therefore, I think we're gonna expand more on this area of alumni networks with this approach of more connecting multiple alumni networks around a specific topic in science.
Great, thanks, Giacomo. Anybody else want to give us and share some experiences that you have? Go ahead, Alexis. Yeah.
So I could obviously mention many like traditional success cases out of this network, like some research institution in Barcelona developing some partnership with an institution abroad thanks to the connection of an alumni and so on. But this is like the kind of usual success cases we would expect. But we have another really cool initiative we developed. We're wondering how, like we talk more and more about how scientific knowledge can be used to design better public policies. And usually, like when governments try to create like an advisory board or some scientific advice for some public policies, they usually tap onto the same people, the usual suspects that are the experts on that topic in the universities in that city or in that country. So we were wondering how we could leverage our Barcelona alumni, all these scientists and professionals in science abroad, to also support this science policy nexus in Barcelona. So we would also making this advice like younger with all this talent we have abroad, more diverse, from people that also experience policies in other cities and countries, so they could also bring not only their scientific knowledge or expertise, but also the best practices they identified in the countries where they live nowadays. So we developed a digital platform where the City Council of Barcelona could, when we designed together with them, a call for experts for several challenges that we were trying to tackle on urban mobility, on sustainable use of water, among others. And then we had all these alumni identified that wanted to participate, because what all of you were mentioning earlier. The thing with diasporas and with alumni is that they really want to give back. It's just that they're not going to be actively always looking for these opportunities. But if we can make these things easier for them and say like, oh, this is a way you can contribute. It can be just like attending an event, but also helping us design better public policies in the field you are an expert in. And well, we did this project, and it was a success. It was even featured as a world best practice in public-private collaboration in the design of public policies by OECD. And now it's being replicated by the UK government as also in a city scale. So well, this is an example of a success case that we had throughout this network.
So that's a fantastic, brilliant example. Thank you, Alexis. That really, I think, brings it to life on how, that power of alumni connection. It's like more than just kind of like you said, going local. It's like adding an exponential to your expertise. So you're adding one of those little numbers. I mean, I'm not a scientist of that kind of nature, but I think that's what those little numbers are for, is to kind of to the multiplier effect that allows. Katharina, did you have anything that you wanted to add about some concrete examples you have?
Yeah, I was going to give this one more different angle as well. We are in the Erasmus Mundus world looking still at more younger people that are connecting in a sense. And I think in that regard, fostering the collaborations really also creates an environment where every individual can develop personally on whatever level they would like to in that very moment, to then start to explore professional pathways, to get to know others that have been working in different contexts. And I think that collaboration power there, as to seeing it as a personal development opportunity, really is also something that's quite unique in this case, also volunteering organizations.
And actually, that really leads to another question that I had, and I'm curious about too, is this idea, what would really motivate people? Often people are motivated by that personal or professional development that they might get from networks. So what do you see? And also maybe the idea of giving back that, Alexis, that you mentioned too, that this, wanting to give back, but you have to have a reason to. Are there other things that you think are the motivations for why individuals who want to get involved in an alumni network? Yeah, go ahead, Katharina. Go, yes.
I can
continue.
Start. And yeah, I think the value also really comes from the connection and also staying connected later on. I've briefly mentioned that there's this more active and more passive collaboration, but I think when you join a network, you also somehow commit to the network. And even though you might not be able to commit to it 100% all the time, you always will have that connection towards coming back and reconnecting and reaching out to that network in case you need it in the future. And that's, I think, one of the motivations, apart from all the others that have been mentioned, that we see quite a lot.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm muted. I was just saying that connected with what Katarina was saying. I mean, and both Sandra and you, Maria, what you mentioned this in your books and in previous talks, is like this alumni from day one perspective. Is like we cannot expect that we want to engage with those alumni diasporas when they are already abroad or far away. Like from the day one that they were at an institution getting trained, or in the country that we're hosting them, we need to start nurturing this relationship, and that they already understand that they are going to be part of this country, of this city, or of this ecosystem forever, even if they leave. So you start creating and nurturing this sense of belonging to an organization, a network, or whatever. So then it makes much more sense when they leave, that they keep somehow connected. They try to get value from this network and also give back. But I think that this can happen just by chance, because there's people that are more proactive and they really like to engage in networks, but it should also be by design. So that's why strategies on diaspora engagement, on science diplomacy should be created and implemented, because otherwise, like trying to identify people that already left many years ago and we didn't try to nurture this relationship, it's really challenging. So doing this from the very beginning is essential.
It's almost like too late. I'm so glad you mentioned that alum from day one thing. I think sometimes you're right. It can be very too late. People want to feel like they're part of something from the moment they like being part of a community. And so the opportunity to be able to do that is really powerful and really important. Giacomo, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this, or on this?
Yeah, there's been a lot being said by Alexis and Katarina. I would just add the aspect of connecting around your what you want to achieve. So people join this network, of course, to give back, but also they think about their personal development, and maybe they want to change a career, and maybe they need somebody to talk about. So I would say that if we can bring a dimension where people join and express their goals, and the network helps to connect them with people who can help to reach those goals in a mutually fashion way, then you create win-wins where success story will bloom. Before we were talking about how do we measure success around an alumni network, where connectivity and success stories among members who help each other to achieve common goals, that's probably a good metrics to look at, and it's an important factor for people to join and to want to contribute to an alumni network.
I just on a final kind of question, just conscious of our time together is coming to a close rapidly. I just wonder if, even briefly, if everyone had one tip, if you wanted to be able to start something like this kind of a global alumni network, a city-based alumni network, a more vertical alumni network, or a specialist network, what would you say is some of the first steps that they should look at doing if they were looking at doing a global alumni network of this type?
Maybe I have 3 words.
Okay.
In real estate, location. In here is about networking, meaning that it's so important to talk about your vision for example, your global alumni networks, why you want to do that, and to talk to the right parties, because I think as soon as everyone share the same vision, for example, I'm sure that Alexis can share something how it became to fruition, this Barcelona-based science diaspora network, then it's easy to get everyone around the table and say, okay, let's bring together different realities to collide into one, which is this example of a global alumni network. That's my tip.
Yeah, I totally agree with. Oh, sorry. No, I was saying that I totally agree with Giacomo that this vision and strategy alignment among the stakeholders or the partners that can help you bring this network forward is essential. I mean, here we always joke that we do as much science diplomacy internally in Barcelona that's towards the outside, because we need to align the interests of many different universities, research centers, and that's, I mean, as you all know, this is quite challenging. And then I would only add, identifying who are going to be the early adopters of this network, who are going to be those leaders that are already abroad, that can be leading chapters or regional parts of this network, because you always need these extra passionate people that wears the colors of your network, and that really is willing to give back and start doing this extra mile work of start building this network, identifying other members, and so on. So I think this is also essential. If you try to do everything top down, it's usually not working.
Yes, you're champions indeed. Katarina, yeah.
Yeah, I think based on what has been said, and also following up on the previous question, I think there are more and more alumni networks out there. So I think it does also really come down to, in one way or another, communicate that mission and vision that the network has, and get the buy-in from your members so that they can then also relatively easily, without too many complications, spread that message around the globe or around that kind of potential stakeholder base that you want to engage with. So if the message is clear, I think it makes it much easier as well for everybody to belong to that network itself.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you to all three of you for your contributions today. Sandra, if I could call on you, please, if you have your final, summary and comments on what you've heard. I think it's a great way to kind of end before we might have any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Maria. How long do I have?
Yeah,
There's a lot of good information coming out.
There. Give yourself 5 minutes, and we don't have any questions yet that have emerged, but we'll see how we get on with 5 minutes and go from there.
I'll be shorter than that. I was just kidding. It was just so rich. Wonderful. First of all, I want to thank Alexis and Katarina and Giacomo for their tremendous efforts and their vision of creating these networks and facilitating it. And I know what it's like to set this up and engage the volunteers and engage everyone that needs to be able to make it happen. But wonderful that you've all had that vision and are contributed tremendously, not only to your initiatives but really as citizens of the world, in terms of everybody's contributing here to a better world for sure. Well, I heard wonderful things in terms of the benefits of the networks. We talked about talent retention and how we need to take a look at that from a 21st century perspective, in terms of this is a global retention. Actually, the diaspora is all over, but they can always give back to their home country, or to their home city, or to their home institution or profession, right? So that's an important one. There's so many benefits that, regardless of what organization is setting this up, there's multiple things that can come out of that. There's also, what motivates the volunteers, the people, the members that, want to participate. And we talked about giving back, their professional development, their connection and reconnection, whether the connection now to make that network happen for them now or later on in life. So, some things to think about. And one of the last things that you all talk about was, strategizing, really thinking about that why, right, that I'm always talking about. Why do you want to set this up? Why do you want to engage your alumni or diaspora? What, and then you go about the how, and how are you going to go about doing that, and who are your main stakeholders here, and how are you going to engage them there? So so those were all wonderful tips as well at the end, that I'm not going to repeat them because I think that they were clear and concise, but I'll restate is the importance of networking and community, and the essence of what is at the heart of the network, whether it be, for a particular topic and profession in science, or whether it be because, you have this emotional connection to give back to your city, to your country, or to your institution. So that's in a nutshell. But thank you all. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. Oh, I lost you.
I'm here again.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you to our panel. I don't know if we have any questions. I've been to a few other sessions, and I know that people have been actively listening, but maybe not asking any questions. So I don't know if anyone had, since we don't have any questions and we have a few minutes left, just maybe if you had any final thoughts about the power of such networks and the potential that you see for such networks over the, because this has been a change. If there's anything that you wanted to leave as a final comment on why you might want to join one of these networks, if you're a scientist listening or watching this, why you might want to join, or indeed why you might want to initiate starting one of these networks in your area. If somebody wants to give any more like final words of wisdom. Anybody here? Sandra, Alexis, Giacomo, Catarina. Go ahead, Catarina.
I think the one thing I wanted to add is that oftentimes also personally you identify a challenge or a problem. And there's two things that might happen: that the others who can take decisions to change things for that problem to be resolved or changed, they might not be aware of the problem. And you're probably also not the only one who has that challenge or faces a similar problem. And I think also there, it's very often networks, it's people with similar interests that might have run into challenges that are very similar to those that you're facing. I have never really been rejected for ideas that I have brought to the table, or when I reached out to someone, I think I was most often being directed into the right direction compared to not having received an answer. So I think this is really more of a motivation to everybody to go reach out to whoever you think might be helpful. And there might be a network already that you can tap in and then make use of as well.
The word curiosity has come up in a lot of sessions today. So I think that's one too, is like, let's be curious about the networks that are out there that we might be able to be supportive to us as people that are involved in science, but also how we might be able to contribute to those. So the curiosity, we can do that. Giacomo, Sandra, Alexis, did you have any other final comments? Go ahead, Alexis.
I just would like to support what we were just saying, what Katarina and you were highlighting, because I think that scientists are obviously curious per se. That, I mean, that's the drive of science, and they all work. I mean, scientists, scholars, we work with colleagues all around the world every day, and we work in teams. We research with others. But at the same time, I would say that compared to other professional communities, we're less used or built to this like reach out networking approach that Katarina was saying, compared to, I don't know, business people. And this is kind of like a fear that people in science and technology sometimes they have, and it's something that it's actually easy to overcome, because as Katarina was saying, when you reach out, you see how people is really willing to support or to help you, and that's not happen as often as it should among the scientific community. Maybe because, I mean, I don't know, there is like a selection bias or in the personality of people that do research. But I think that this is a really take home message, like reach out, try to connect. I mean, you're not going to be rejected.
Yeah, a great message. Yeah. And also, if you're the person who's being contacted, be kind to those that have contacted you. Also, Sandra, Giacomo, did you have anything? Go ahead, Giacomo.
No, I fully agree with Alexis. I mean, I've seen when I was, back in the lab, maybe I was the networker guy, where most of the people were kind of a little bit more shy. However, I've seen, and this is linked to something that has been said before, but also Sandra mentioned, is the why. So if you tell a scientist why they should do something, for example, why they should join a network, why they should network, it becomes more pragmatic for them. And so they will be more inclined to participate, to reach out. While business people, maybe they say, oh, there is a network of product manager, okay, I'll join, and they will network naturally because it's in their maybe is the business side of things. But science is about understanding and figuring out. So the why is very important. And if you say, this is why we created this network, this is our goal, then you have a good chance to get scientists involved, participate, engage, and make the network spark.
Love that. Purpose-built networks and alumni networks, can learn a lot from that. Sandra, can I give you the last word, and then we can kind of close out the session?
Thank you, Maria. Well, like I said, I just want to thank all three panelists for their initiatives. I think that they're wonderful, and I think that it's important for people to realize that in the 21st century we are part of many communities, right? And so that not to fear in terms of, that you're competing. The 21st century is about collaboration. And I think building communities is, a way to really navigate these global challenges and what is going to bring us these minds together to innovate solutions. So again, thank you so much for having those initiatives and that vision.
Yes.
I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everybody. And that's the conclusion of our panel. And I encourage you all to reach out to us and also to reach out and connect with the rest of the conference. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.